Marcio de Castro, 32-year-old accountant Paloma and his wife were scuba diving on the same beach. He plunged his head into the warm Brazilian sea, but despite the famous transparency of the water, it was slightly hazy. Marcio headed for cleaner water. He watched some of the fish as they swam by. Their bright hues were mesmerizing. They moved quickly, darting left and right. Marcio collided with the shark when he turned to face the other way. He was completely unprepared for this. It quickly turned towards him, and now it was toothy. Green gave Marcio a straight look. His sudden appearance alarmed me. Marcio started to swim away when she grabbed his arm. As a result, he was violently shaken and dumped to the bottom of the ocean. Marcio screamed under the water. He could feel the weight of millions of years of development pressing down on his hand as the horror took shape. The shark's pull was so strong that it tore Marcio's arm from his body. He appeared thanks to liberation. He gasped for air and called for help as soon as he surfaced. Luckily for him, British swimmer Barney Lancaster Owen had just finished swimming in the same spot 10 minutes earlier. Theodora, 6, and Ethan, 4, were traveling with their parents, a 36-year-old Briton who had lived in Brazil for 3 years, and his wife Isabel, a native of Brazil. After an exciting snorkeling trip, Thiago Barney toweled himself dry on the Golden Beach. Peering into the river, he heard the Portuguese calling for help. He suddenly saw the noise caused by Marcio's attack. At first, he thought that the young Brazilian was playing with his wife, but that was before the water began to foam and bubble crimson. Caring little for his personal safety, the young guy screamed and screamed, furiously trying to free himself from the jaws of the shark. Barney dived into the ocean. He rushed to the upset Brazilian. Approaching him, he saw the depth of his wounds. He was amazed to see that Marcio's right arm was missing. The shark bit off the lower part of his arm. The muscle was torn and the bone was protruding. To help the guy get to the beach, Barney grabbed him by the torso. Then he stopped. He calmly asked Marcio if he wanted him to look for his lost hand in case it could be saved. Marcio said all he wanted was to get out of the water as soon as possible. He was scared. Moving through the water with the wounded Marcio, the shark returned for more. Now Barney realized how risky his rescue operation was. In the water, they left behind a significant trail of blood. Perhaps a shark is swimming under them. He had to put himself in danger to save the life of a complete stranger, and yet he stubbornly continued to wade through the water in the direction of the shore. Fortunately, they both successfully made it to land. They were at the very edge of the beach. Apart from Marcio's wife, who was in shock and could not help, there was no one else in sight. Barney realized that he needed to act quickly. He carefully removed Marcio's goggles and life jacket. The stump of his amputated arm was inserted into the armhole of his life jacket. Blood was oozing from the gaping wound. As he and Barney staggered 400 yards down the beach to the nearest beach store, Marcio raised his cropped stump over his head with his other hand. Marcio was very reserved. He just focused on putting one foot in front of the other, controlling his breathing and clinging to the stump. When they arrived, Marcio was hunched over. Barney twisted us into a tourniquet, grabbing us by the shoulders. To stop the bleeding, he securely tied it around Marcio's amputated arm. Emergency services were called, and Marcio was taken to the only hospital in the archipelago. There, doctors did everything possible to sew up his wounds, but the next day he was sent to the Del Rest Hospital on the mainland, where he underwent surgery. After the attack, Barney found out that the beach where they were swimming was a recognized shark feeding place. The tiger shark was the species that most likely attacked Marcio. In recent memory, this was the first shark attack on the beach. Tiger sharks are believed to be responsible for the majority of unprovoked attacks worldwide, despite the fact that attacks by great white sharks on humans are most often documented. Given the huge number of people who go to sea every year, there are 50 to 70 shark attacks every year, 5 to 15 of which end in death. Attacks happen quite rarely, and you must be really unlucky to encounter one of them. Perhaps they would have stayed on the boat if they had known what marine explorer John Naughton knew. John Naughton knew. John Naughton worked for the National Marine Fisheries Service and was a member of the Hawaii State Shark Task Force. Over the previous 2 years, he and his colleagues observed changes in the behavior of great white sharks off the coast of Hawaii. All these shark sightings in the vicinity of Hawaii are quite unusual. It was noticed that they began to hunt spinner dolphins, unlike tiger sharks. In fact, swimming with a huge flock of spinning dolphins turned out to be dangerous. The dolphin's behavior can change at any moment, indicating impending danger, and that's exactly what happened. John lowered his face to the surface of the water. He liked to watch the underwater bursts of dolphins as they descended after their aerial stunts, and watch as they were temporarily surrounded by a swarm of bubbles. The module has been completed. John, Stephanie, and the rest of the group swam a few feet below. The speed at which they could swim with just a slight flick of their tails was amazing. It was something John and Stephanie often did. They both liked the ocean, and it was exciting and delightful to be able to see these magnificent creatures. They instantly took off like rockets and sped off into the distant blue while John floated above the capsule. John was momentarily taken aback by their actions. Then, his leg felt a sudden, violent jolt. At first, this feeling took him by surprise, and he wasn't sure what it was. Whatever it was, it pinched John's leg briefly before letting go. John's leg was throbbing. It felt like painful pricks all over my body. A huge, silvery figure floated beneath him as he turned to look around. At that moment, he realized that it was a shark. John's first concern was the safety of his wife. Since his bite wasn't very painful at the moment, he didn't worry about it. The shark lingered nearby, slowly swimming under him, and he was determined to get between her and his wife. Raising his head above the surface of the water, he called Stephanie to get out of the water. The distance was 60 feet. They were horrified at the thought of being chased by a shark. Victor Lasano, captain of a boat for dolphin excursions in Hawaii. I searched the surface of the ocean for the presence of a shark. Victor dragged John and Stephanie onto a rigid, inflatable boat when they fortunately got there. They both lay motionless. John's injuries were dealt with by an orthopedic surgeon at the clinic after he received several stitches. Indeed, John was released on the same day. Although it could take up to 4 weeks for the wound to heal completely, the surgeon noted that John was lucky. As a result of the bite, neither tendons nor ligaments were damaged. John was probably mistaken for someone else, so the shark probably let him go.